Touya Demons. This is a small fraction of our team. We have a rather large production team. Touya Demons is a serialized online novel and fully dramatized audiobook with a full voice cast. It is illustrated. I'm Lianne, I'm the writer. This is Rem, she's our illustrator. She flew all the way in from Texas to be here. This is Rebecca, she's our audio editor, audio mixer, prose editor, and composer. She composes all the music. We're up to something like 20 or 25 pieces in the first 4 chapters of a total of 24. This is Moonklutz, she is our main actress. We have 2 leads, Ayase and Joe. She is the voice of Ayase. We have certified actor Alex.
Thank you, yes.
One of the only actual, real actors in our cast. He is the voice of Joe Oda, who is the lead. And on the end there, we have Jae Rodgers in the creepy black gloves. He is playing our resident creep Touya. And also, with his Boston accent, he's playing another character, Nick. Yes, he hasn't really been in it much. So, we also have some of our extended. Please raise your hand if you're in the crowd and you're a part of Touya Demons. Come on, guys.
What is on the waiting list?
So, to explain Touya Demons, basically it is an urban fantasy story, similar to anime and manga. It is written in the tradition of the Japanese light novel. Rebecca and I have been editors of the manga and light novel industry for over a decade. We edited our fair share of terrible localized light novels and decided eventually we wanted to try writing our own. It is extremely long. It's going to be a trilogy. The first book is just completed. We're actually debuting it at the con. Can somebody pass me a... This is available as of 2 days ago. It is entirely serialized online. About 90% of it is serialized for free. This is the first drama series set. You can open that and show them that it's 6 discs for 4 chapters. Wow. It is pretty monstrous. When you buy a hard copy version, there's extras like this is bonus short stories, this is bonus short stories, and extra material, that sort of thing. So, I am going to go down the line and have everybody explain a little bit about how they do what they do.
Yeah, tell me where to start.
Well, I would say in the case of Rem, we send her a basic description of what we'd like, along with sometimes an excerpt of the book, particularly if it's because she illustrates it. So there's 1 illustration per chapter. And on the website, we have a ton of all the character designs are up. Actually, they're still rolling out. There's a cast of 50 people. We have these giant relationship charts with all these arrows going who's in love with who and who's trying to kill who, and people X'd out as soon as they get killed. So we basically send her these very mild descriptions, and she sends us magic back.
That's right. Yeah. But, I have a background in doing illustrations for people, just commissions since I was 16 or whatever, so this is very comfortable, territory for me, and I'm glad that Lianne's usually happy with what I do.
I love her so much.
But it's a lot of fun to work with. I really like being given a personality and having to create a person from that style. So, yeah.
For anybody who's not familiar with Rem's work, she's currently doing a serial manga for Yen Press, the Yen Plus magazine. Soulless, which is an adaptation of, is it the Parasol Protectorate?
Yes.
Yes. No. She's an established manga creator. She did Vampire Kisses, the manga, which was based off another novel series for Tokyopop. And, okay, so Kodansha, a couple of years ago, ran an international short story manga contest, and she won grand prize. So anyone who's familiar with Kodansha, it's one of the biggest publishers in Japan. So this is how capable she is, and we are very lucky to have her. She is also doing signings of Soulless and that sort of thing. Svetlana Smokova. I'm not pronouncing that right. Svetlana, who is also a Yen Press manga. She does DramaCon, Night School, Witch and Wizard. Supporting us in the front row, she will be signing with Rem.
Oh, is it okay to ask questions
Yes,
during the panel?
Sure.
Yeah, do you send them rough sketches before you finish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Most of the time or all the time?
Most of the time.
Okay, yeah.
Occasionally you're like, well, I didn't send a sketch, but I decided to keep going. Is it okay? And it's 1,000 times better than I could have physically pictured into my brain.
I don't think I sent you much for the cover of that.
No, this cover was, she just sent it to me.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
Yeah. I was like, can you have them on steps? She's like, here, I made you this.
Yeah.
Weren't you saying the only time the changes had to be made, it was like, oh God, no, they're too pretty. No.
Yeah. Too sexy. Too sexy, yeah.
We had Nick's head was too big.
There's one point where Nick's head was too small, yeah.
Oh, it's too small, okay.
Well, because he's like a big guy, and
Yeah.
he was wearing a baseball cap with shaved head, and his head was a little smaller. That was literally the only mistake in like 1,000 drawings.
And I think you mentioned you did them digitally.
Yes.
Which program did you use? to
Sai.
Okay.
I used Photoshop a little bit, but for inking, Sai is really handy, so.
I haven't used that much yet. Is it true that it's vector, the inking?
You can do vector inking, but it's funky, you know, because it's vectors. It's like using the pen tool, so it kind of decides how your lines will be after you do a stroke. It like
Right.
fixes them. So if you're like really into precision and stuff, then it might drive you bonkers. But Sai is a very cheap, very handy program way to work with your tablet, so it's a good program for this sort of thing.
And the painting also in that? Or-
That I did mostly in Photoshop. I don't always like how Sai colors the brushes, so it's better for inking for me. But yeah, that was mostly Photoshop.
Cool.
And magic.
Magic fingers.
Oh, that's it. You make it so impressive when she's like sitting there drawing for hours and hours and hours. Yeah. Yeah, we'd be nothing without her. This was something that we wanted to do as a novel through Tokyo Pop many years ago, because Becca and I worked for them for so many years. And they were looking at original novel, light novel proposals, but not that seriously. But we eventually decided to serialize it online, which ended up being a much better format for it, because it is extremely complicated. And being able to have all those character designs and character charts makes it a lot easier to work with. People can go and be like, who the hell is that? And they'll look it up and be like, you know, we have the character descriptions, and they're white font against white for spoilers. So depending on kind of what chapter you are, we'll tell you so you don't get too spoiled. And then the audiobook. So I'm going to have Rebecca tell you about the amazing audiobook.
Gosh. Okay, so I am sort of the sound person for the audiobook. I am doing all of the directing and editing and sound effects and music and all sort of thing, as I said. And it's kind of an interesting format to work in because, I mean, obviously people have been doing radio dramas and radio plays for a long time, but it's not really a format that is big here in North America. But Japan has this like incredible drama CD like culture, and that's something Lianne is really into. So when we started doing this project, one of the really great things about doing it online is that we get to do whatever the hell we want, which is something we've been taking advantage of. We're sort of spinning it off in every direction. So what she sort of said, do an audio drama, you can use your failed music degree. I was like, sure, whatever. Not really understanding how much work that would entail. This is, I don't know, between 4 and 5 hours of content, I think, and I've timed myself recently. It takes about an hour to do a minute of content. So any of you who are, you know, edit audio or edit video or anything like that, you know how sort of arduous it can be. So the sound studio is my bedroom. So you know, the setup becomes less and less bootleg the longer we do this, as I kind of upgrade things. But we recorded every actor separately. You know, usually with a lot of like laughing and hyena laughing in the background. So eventually I have, you know, I'll have like an hour's worth of audio that in there somewhere all of the lines that I need. And then starts sort of the editing process where you go through and you pick all the best takes and you listen to them against each other and then try to time it so it actually sounds like dialogue. That's sort of where the meat of the work comes in. And then once I have this wonderful rough cut of it, go through and just, you know, sound effects are a lot of fun. I use Freesound is where I get a lot of them, which is like a sort of big open source sound website. I also make a lot of them myself. I've been experimenting a lot with fight sounds that usually involves punching different parts of my body to see what sticks. You know, I'm sort of discovering how do I make the sound of someone falling over without actually falling over and injuring myself, which is interesting. That part's a lot of fun, but also when I'm kind of running behind, it's like, oh god, I might have to run into the wall at 2 in the morning again. I don't want to do this. So yeah, and then eventually just clip it all together, listen to it about 4 times to make sure everything's where it should be, and throw it up on the site.
And the music, don't forget
And the music, which gets done.
She has, like, so most of the main characters, they all have a theme song, and then they have variations on their theme song. And then she has general background music, she has ambient sound, like we have some things like a classroom scene or a subway, that kind of thing. She has sort of like action music. There's about a full chapter's worth takes place in a dance club. There's like 8 techno songs that play on a loop, like in the background. It's ridiculous, the amount of work she has done.
You know, I'm trying to imitate an audio drama as much as I can, because, you know, in a real audio drama, it's literally just what you hear is what's going on. We're not quite there. We have the excuse me. We have the internal monologues. We have the narrative being spoken by Ayase and Joe for the sections that are from their perspective, because the perspective is split between the 2 characters. So Moonklutz here is she'll read out all the Ayase sections, and she'll also read her dialogue and little tricks to make it actually discernible from each other. But so like I can kind of use the dialogue as a crutch sometimes when there's a sound that just isn't really feasible to get. But sort of working toward being as close to a full-on drama where you're hearing everything that's there as possible. And definitely not there yet, but it's something that we're working on.
Yeah, it is technically an audiobook. We're calling it a dramatized audiobook because all the characters are a different voice, and also all the music and sound effects. But it's basically, like she said, we're halfway between an audiobook and a full-blown audio drama because we didn't have you really need a studio for the amount of sound effects that you need for an audio drama. Also, we would need to adapt the script significantly, and this is being serialized as this is being serialized. So it literally has to be almost like 1 for 1. Although some changes are made in audio if something doesn't work, or if there's a line that Rebecca always hated, she just won't put it in.
Yeah, I was officially given veto
power,
over this, so I get to mess with it, just like.
Let's start us off with the acting process.
Oh God. Okay, I'd never acted before I went into this. I was almost tricked into auditioning.
Wait a minute. You have a very popular podcast, this girl.
Okay, I do. I have a pretty good podcast called The Slash Report, which has a pretty big listenership. So I do that, but that's just like me and Rage Proof Rock talking about TV shows and movies and whatever we're interested in. And people like that. But
25,000 people per episode like that.
it does pretty well. But my best friend was like, you know, they're doing this audio drama. You should probably try out. And I was like, I almost failed drama in high school. I don't know if that's a good idea. And she was like, don't worry, it's like an introvert character. And I was like, oh, that probably doesn't have a lot of lines, right? That's like small. I had a meeting after work. I got home at 7. I was like, can I send this to you today? Can I just record it in 5 minutes and send it to you? And Lianne was like, yeah, no problem. And then they were like, so what are you doing for the next 3 years? Are you staying in Toronto? Yes. I did not know it was the main character. That was pretty terrifying. But they gave me pizza, which is awesome.
Yeah, actors are paid in pizza, unfortunately.
They're okay with me getting the giggles all the time during recording. All the time.
Yeah, it's literally, there's a line, and there's a line, and there's that again.
It's either that or, can you do that but with less feelings?
Once more without emotion.
Yeah, oh, how little emotion do you, less? Less more? Again? How depressed do you want me to sound? But it's fun. I like Ayase. She goes a little crazy, a lot crazy, about halfway through. I'd say the most memorable was they live above a restaurant, and I was there recording at 8 on a Friday night or something, so it's like a good restaurant night. And they were like, great, now what you have to do is scream as loud as you can while you go insane. And I was like, right now? Are people okay? And then it was 20 minutes of screaming.
Yeah, which is actually the end. This ends on her manic scream. This is part 1 of the audiobook. It's the first. The book is 8 chapters long, and this is part 1, so chapters 1 through 4. Moonklutz is doing a really good job. She is supposed to be sort of an introvert who slowly goes more and more nuts, and you can actually, your narrative does get tighter and crazier as time goes on. So it's a very impressive performance, subtle and beautiful.
Thank you. I'll try to go crazy slowly for you.
Well, that's it. This is the worst part. She'll get better now.
Okay.
You'll go crazy in the second half. Okay, on to Joe Oda.
Hi, I'm Alex. I play Joe Oda. I show up and I read my lines and I don't know what else to say.
So most of our people, they, for example, read the book before they come in and perform it. Alex does not do this thing. You read the book in its entirety 2 weeks ago?
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, so he comes in and cold reads, and everything is like 1 or 2 takes. Because you were a certified actor.
Yes.
He's one of the only
I have an actual certificate, that's not just a saying.
He did what was a drama program, right?
Yeah, performing arts at Sheridan College in Oakville.
Did you hear the way he's speaking? Listen to his voice. This man was born for radio.
I was the one character that apparently didn't have to audition. They knew before I did that I was going to be playing the male lead, so
Yeah, sort of forced.
a little bit. But, pizza as well, so.
We need a lot of those moments where he'll be reading along and be like, oh, that happens? Interesting. And then you just sort of go with it.
The way it's written, you kind of get to a point, especially if you haven't read it before, that I'll be acting along, and I get to a point and I'm like, I just have to start laughing because I'm like, are you friggin' kidding me? Okay, yeah, I'm reading this, am I? Oh, okay.
Every time a chapter comes up, we get the text from the actors being like, do I have to say this? Why am I doing this?
Right around Christmas time, was that when the sexy scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're posting it on the site and I'm reading along. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Ayase's having a dream or whatever. A wet dream. And I was like, wait, that's me. Okay. We'll see how that goes when that happens.
Everybody's gonna get a turn, don't worry. You'll all be tortured equally. Not. She's spared. Anyone who's an actor, yeah. I mean, it's gotten to the point even where, because after we cast everybody, because the performances are so good and everybody's taking their characterizations very seriously, it is influencing the writing. And oh my God, Paul brought cupcakes to this panel. This is the best panel. Paul is also in our audiobook. He steals the show as the stoner that initiates Joe into the street gang. He does an excellent job. Okay, moving on to Jae Rodgers.
Hi, I'm Jae Rodgers. I play 2 characters right now, Touya Kamichita and Nick. The main character I've been playing is Touya, and he's kind of the villain, I guess, right now? Kind of?
You don't know.
Yeah.
That's a spoiler, if he's a villain.
I don't- Yeah.
He's a
The fact that we're not even sure yet is kind of fun. But, yeah, I also have moments where I read through the book and be like, okay, that's Joe. My character's talking to Joe. I've known Alex for many years. We're good friends. I am now really,
Yeah.
in some really awkward
Toya
moments.
hits on Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
And this is something that, because you guys recorded it separately, when we released, Alex's fiance was like, send me the gay scene.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's only gonna get gayer, guys. Okay, now that
So
we've
it's kind of fun, though. It's really strange.
Now that we've gone through all the previous parts of the story all at once, why doesn't Lianne talk about the story itself a little bit so we don't sound like the biggest creatures in the universe?
Okay, so dual third-person limited perspective between Ayase and Joe. So Ayase is an average Japanese high school girl who can turn her body into insects. So she's kind of
That's
crazy.
average?
Yeah,
Totally average.
except for that. Joe Oda is a kid who's bounced around the foster system and is a very accomplished pickpocket. So the two of them kind of, they start out sort of separate and their lives kind of crisscross in and out. And by the end of book 2, they've sort of found themselves in each other's lives. But until then, they're basically covering 2 ends of sort of where the story is going. And it's basically about, they make a couple of friends at school and they end up getting dragged into this sort of botched drug deal in a club. And it kind of spirals out of control and they end up getting dragged into this giant, sort of like an underground gang war that's going on in Tokyo between other supernatural powers and stuff. There's a lot of gang fighting, there's bad guys with yakuza with guns at some point, there are fires, there are a lot of fires. And Ayase turning into Swarm. Her powers are very versatile, so she ends up becoming kind of a very powerful force that nobody was really expecting. A bunch of organizations were kind of infighting, but she's kind of this wild card that comes in. And a couple different groups are sort of courting Ayase and Joe and trying to get them. Joe gets initiated into a gang. Show them your white wallet.
This is my gang symbol, by the way. It's not a fashion symbol, it's just, yeah.
It's your metrosexual version of a gang.
Yes.
It's an organization with a super drug, and there are physical markings of people who take this drug. So you'll notice that, for example, Touya is wearing long sleeves and gloves, people that you don't know whether or not they're on this drug or not. I'm wearing a jacket, some characters who are suspicious, that sort of thing. So it's It's extremely complicated. It's kind
Intrigue
of hard.
and danger and romance.
Yeah, intrigue, danger, romance. That's kind of the goal. It was originally planned. The whole Tokyo Demon storyline takes place over 6 weeks, and it is 3 books long. So this is 400 pages long. This is 2 weeks. It's a lot that happens in a short period of time, which is partially why come book 2 and all this weird sexy stuff comes up. Is because they're basically all going through puberty, and they're kind of under a lot of stress in close quarters, and things kind of
Get sexy.
get sexy. Yeah. We have also planned out 2 additional series, Tokyo Ghosts, which would be 2 books long, and Tokyo Angels, which is 1 or 2 books long. Those take place a couple of years after. Same characters. Whoever survives in the cast moves on to the next series. So,
Standing.
yeah. And so this is about 1 book a year that we're doing right now. So if everything goes through, this is about 6 more years. But you guys have only signed on. They've only signed on for Tokyo Demons, so
We're going to see how things go at that
yeah.
point.
Plus, there's a 5-year gap between Tokyo Demons and Tokyo Ghosts, so they'd all be adults. So if you
I'm
want,
hoping this first one will be wildly successful so that next year I can demand 2 slices of pizza.
we did run a Kickstarter for this, and we tried to raise $3,000 to help pay for the production costs, and we raised almost 8, so it went pretty well. And yeah, the site is, it's free, and there's a really active community. Our readership is small, but it is very passionate and super friendly. We had one fan that was so good, she got a fan for being such a good fan. Like, they're all like best friends now. And we advertise through the Project Wonderful Network, and a lot of our advertising is in other countries, so most of our, we have a pocket in Southeast Asia that really likes us, and Britain and Australia, and very few people either actually in this continent are following us right now, but and so Touya is a character that has always creeped out Becca, so when
It's my
Jae
favorite
does
thing in the world.
yeah, Jae does his lines and she's editing, I'll hear her in her room, she's like, like, particularly when he's for like, Joe, just like, Jae, just kind of ramp it up, I want it worse, like, more homoerotic, let's go, come on.
There's nothing inherently creepy about homoeroticism.
No.
Just, he's a creeper. He just shows up and is like looming over people.
Not me, I'm actually,
Jae's actually a very nice person, yes, but you are.
Unless he tries to mess with me, which, yeah, is happening.
Well, you get paid in pizza, that's one of the perks you get. You can be sort of a jerk.
I didn't know that.
I should have
Encourage them.
No, I'd say the best moment was we were watching the guy who plays Sachi, who's kind of like the love interest in the story, record some of his lines, and he was getting really uncomfortable, and Lianne was sitting there, slyly filming her. He was like, wait, are you filming me?
You're gonna be
Yes.
whispering in the microphone, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this, it's so weird.
Sappy romantic
Severance.
lines.
Yeah, we haven't even done the makeout scenes yet, so good luck, guys. In drama cities in Japan, they do sometimes very graphic makeout scenes, which is just like, when you layer it over,
that a little bit.
yeah,
It's probably gonna be me by myself going.
It might be.
No, I was at your place one day, and we had to record something where there's a surprise kiss early on. And I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I have some Vaseline with me. I smeared Vaseline all over my mouth and started making out with my hands. And everyone in the next room was like, what are you doing? It's like, it's okay, I'm acting.
I think you made kiss noises, and Dallas was playing the guy who was kissing. He was also making kiss noises, and then we picked whichever one was the best.
It was probably his.
Yeah, so we have Dallas, he's not here today, but he's not just a certified actor, he's actually like an accomplished stage actor. Like, he does musicals that travel across Canada, and he happens to be related to one of the other characters. And we had difficulty casting Kyoshi, who's one of the leads, and she was like, oh, let me call my brother. I'm like, the talented brother? No, I don't want him to slum unless it's me. She's like, don't worry about it. And within 10 minutes, he was at our door. He's like, I heard there's pizza. And he is super good. Most people are amateurs, which is actually something we kind of wanted to do. I wanted everybody to sound very, very distinct. We wanted to capture kind of this raw sound of people with their natural dialects, because we have some Canadians and Americans mixed in here. We wanted people who have very different type sounds to their voices, whereas actors sometimes sound a little bit more uniform because they're all trained. So most people, we do a lot of takes and explain it to them, and a lot of them are following the story. So okay, I kind of know how to do this. He came in, and Kyoshi's one of the hardest characters to play because he's kind of like a third guy who all terrible things happen to him, like terrible, terrible things. So he's like screaming and crying and sobbing and panicking in between being kind of like, "Grr." So there's like a lot of range there. And also, he goes through, there's like, I don't want to spoil too much. He kind of goes through sudden puberty also. Like, so this is not an easy part to cast, and we were really stuck, and then we had this guy come in. And not only does he have, like, his speaking voice is literally, I couldn't have imagined a more perfect casting choice for him, but when he has to do the difficult parts, we're like, okay, you have to scream, it's like, okay, hang on. And he method acts, so he's all of a sudden, he's clutching at himself, and, like, grabbing his hat, and it's, like, amazing. We're just standing in the corner being like, and in the audio version, it sounds super good. He had to fake, like, his own
I can say, I
kidnapping.
need like 45 seconds of crying, go.
Yeah, and and Becca came out one day, she's like, I can't listen to it, it's too sad. So he's really good, and he's the first kiss scene with you. That might have been his kiss sound. He was doing it for a while.
I think it was.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people over when I was making my kiss sound.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to do that.
Occasionally we do, so Rebecca and I are, when we do the recording, she does the recording and we both direct together. But sometimes we do have other people sitting in the room, either to observe, to learn, or to help direct. I think that one you might have.
Yeah, gigantic quotes around help direct sometimes. Where you're just kind of like tittering in the corner, and you have to do your absolute best to ignore that they're actually there. Then again, you kind of fill that role yourself
Yeah, I'm
sometimes.
She was more cakes.
But it's so adorable. I don't think you realize how adorable you all are being, pretending to be these like 16-year-olds. Like, oh God, no, I don't want to die. It's
You're a
really
terrible person.
great. Anyway, do we have questions? Oh, have you read it online?
I was actually referred to it by a friend.
Oh, really? Are you enjoying it? Do you have any criticism?
I've only listened to a couple of the audio parts, so
Oh.
that's it so far. So when you're talking about the audio dialogue, I'm like, yeah, I can do something.
She doesn't
and then imagining the kissing noise, I'm like, now I can really imagine that.
That noise was literally, it was a combination of Dallas making the kind of noise, you making the kind of noise, and then like I pile up stuff and then kick it over, and like
Yeah, it was
it's
like
just-
it was a sleep. It was a sleep
yeah.
kiss.
Why do you write these?
Yeah, it's kind of it was part of the shoujo tradition, and it did let us test very early on how we were going to do the kissing sounds, which is going to be an issue with book 2.
Yeah, I imagine.
She's doing a good job, huh? Sounds good.
So far.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll check it.
You mentioned you guys were doing homages to shoujo and shonen things, and I think I recall on your website you guys mentioned that there were also things in shonen shoujo that you didn't like
Yes.
and wanted to cut out, and
Yes.
for your storytelling. Can you go into maybe some of the things that sort of bug you about shonen and shoujo?
Oh, I'd be happy to go into a book.
Do we have the time?
Do you have like 5 days?
Because so some of the titles that Rebecca and I worked on, biggest title worked on was Fruits Basket for Tokyo Pop. Sayuki, Kamichama Karen, Brave Master, BTEX, Tactics, Sailor Moon. I did Sailor Moon novels for kids back in the day. Digimon, Happy Cafe, Mr. Clean, Clean Freak? I don't even know what they translate. Alice in the Country
Clean Freak,
Parts and
fully
Clover.
equipped.
Huh?
Yeah.
Clean Freak,
Fully Equipped, yes, that was one of mine as well. Vision of
The
Escaflowne.
shonen one.
The shonen version, yeah. More, I'm sure there are more. And the light novels we did Slayers and Scrap Princess. So, and also we're giant manga nerds, so we read a million times more than what we work on. Well, Ayase and Joe were both supposed to be representative of kind of the genres that they're from, with stuff that we liked, minus stuff we didn't like. So, in Ayase's case, she is sort of the, a little bit of the introvert shoujo lead who's not really aggressive. But the reason she's not aggressive is because she's bees. She turns into what we call them bees, but they're actually like magical insects. I'm not going to go into that now, but the reason she's introverted is because she's paranoid and she has deep-seated anger issues because of this. She was raised by nuns that she didn't get along with, and she's like, Like one day I'm just gonna sting all of them. No. It's not because she's weak-willed or has spineless like a lot of shoujo heroines are. She also has definitely been affected by sort of the way girls are socialized and how they're raised, and sort of internalized sexism and stuff, and not understanding her own. There's a lot in here. It's kind of subtle in the beginning, but she's very uncomfortable with her own body, partially because she was raised by strict Catholic nuns and reads a lot of biology textbooks, so her sex ed came from a combination of nuns and textbooks, which is the worst kind of sex ed you can get. We're going to be going into that more in part 2 about how her wires are totally crossed on that sense. And how, there are a lot of things in there that I think female adolescence is super interesting, and I think the way it's captured in shoujo, it's just so bogged down by internalized sexism. The girls are too afraid of being too aggressive, or they're focused only on the boys they like, or whatever. This I wanted to be a lot more truer to what I knew. I went through adolescence as a girl, and also my friends were girls. Trying to capture what I thought was unique about female adolescence and how you can work through all the conflicting messages you get through society as girls are socialized and come out kind of a powerful girl, but not in a gimmicky way, but how there's all these identity issues and you have to unsort all the crap you've been given in order to find yourself. Whereas Joe, who's kind of from shonen, he's a little bit more goal-oriented. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. His love story is much simpler. Just like, hey, it's a hot girl who's kind of like me. Done. You're in love. It's like the Ms. Pac-Man syndrome. He's like, oh, there's another girl who's also a sexy pickpocket. I'm finished now. But at the same time, he is very smart. He's not one of these, like, the harder I work, like the power of friendship. And also, he has severe issues with his morality, which is something that shonen heroes never do. They're always like, I believe in friendship. You either have like the anti-hero, like Light, Death Note, oh my god. Or you get, kind of the Goku sort of sense, where it's just like they are pure goodness or whatever. Joe is not a good person, and this is something that no. I mean, he's a pickpocket, but also he's more affectionate than he's willing to sort of admit, but he's very defensive about it. And also he's very, we're joking about the metrosexual thing, but he's very kind of...
Not afraid to look good, what?
Pretty much, yeah. He's got kind of like an old jazzy sort of thing going. He thinks he's a lot older than he is. But he realizes over time when he's faced with these really bad people that he's like, am I a bad person? Like, I obviously steal from my own gang, but I wouldn't kill somebody. I wouldn't hurt my friends, sort of thing. So his morality is something he struggles with, especially in the second half of book 1. So we joked that Ayase kind of goes nuts by the time this one ends. So Ayase's struggles are mostly in the first half of book 1, and then she kind of gets her act together, and then Joe starts to spiral downwards, where he's like, what am I doing? And also, he's a lot more involved in sort of the violence. She is very, very good in physical combat. She turns into insects that sting people. So they have these guys with guns, and she turns into a swarm and stings them. What are you going to do? Shoot the bugs? I mean, somebody eventually is going to bring a flamethrower, and then she's screwed. But like, until that moment happens, she's fine. Whereas Joe...
I get hit by all the fists.
Starting from chapter 4, basically, Joe's like a punching bag. Like, he's very good at sort of faking his way through things, but once he actually gets involved in gang warfare and these bad people, he's constantly, his life is in danger. He's trying to decide, like, would I screw somebody else over to save my own skin? That kind of thing. So he's very...
Very slight spoiler alert, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Openly wearing a gang sign. Okay,
I tried more.
Well,
Yeah, exactly. So his morality is a lot more complicated, and he is supposed to be very intelligent. So those are the things that I thought in Shonen Heroes. I really like how they build, like, he's very charismatic. People kind of are drawn to him, and I really liked that in Shonen. You have like kind of the good lead, somebody who like believes and he'll take his team and go towards the end, very goal oriented, and trying to do something that's good for the group. But he doesn't start out really good. He has to kind of grow into it. And also, I think Shonen leads. I'm kind of tired of the dim hero. I wanted somebody who's a little bit more introspective, and also it's easier to write about moral complexities when his internal narrative is more than just like, my friends will get through this! 4 exclamation points.
So this is more like, my friends will get through this, question mark.
There's a lot of that. I think we wanted to put a quote on the back of the book. I think it's the last chapter where Joe's smoking in the church. So they basically, there's a church with some religious characters in it. He's sitting in the church, he's going, I'm gonna die here. Like, I think that's kind of the summation of sort of Joe's realization through this, whereas Ayase is like,
I can kill everyone.
Yeah, I can kill everyone. Yeah. So, It's there. We wanted to do a lot of moral complexities in it. I think a story is only as interesting as the morals are complicated. Like, there's a time and place for a simple story, and this is not that. There's a huge ensemble cast. There's like 50 people. Because the perspective is limited between Ayase and Joe, in the beginning of every chapter is a 1 to 3 page scene that is through a different character's perspective. Sometimes it's a flashback. Sometimes it is something that happened off screen outside of Joe and Ayase's perspective. It's basically to fill in some of the gaps where Joe and Ayase can't be, and also to give insight into these like 70 other people that you'll never get inside their head. We also have some short stories that are through other people's perspectives to kind of fill in the background and stuff. It's a lot of the people who join in, you know, they're part of organizations. They have very complicated histories with other characters and that sort of thing. And our actors are doing a really great job. They're and Rem did such a great job with the character designs. We have multiracial characters, and you drew an Arabic guy in manga style, and it's great. Like, we have a Saudi prince in this. We just cast like a week ago, so every once in a while we'll have these major characters where, like, I don't know anybody who could possibly do this, and we have exhausted like every man in my life is in this drama. We still have like 17 more male characters. And other people go through different moral issues, but Joe's is the most complicated, the one that's focused most on book 1. And book 2 is a little more action, and I can't go into book 3 without spoiling everything.
Want to talk about the spin-offs and stuff with the card?
Oh God, I forgot. Okay, so this is a multimedia project. As Rebecca said, because we are self-publishing online, and because most of what we're doing is digital, these are the print versions, but they're brand new. Most of what we do is digital. We can kind of do whatever we want. And because we live in Toronto, for those of you who are familiar with Toronto, this is a great nerd hub. There are lots of people around here who are very, very talented. For example, Moonklutz designed all of these. We have, you know, people who are doing coding and stuff for us on the website. We're doing a number of spin-offs. So the first one, other than the short stories and stuff that we have here, we're doing a Touya Demons card game. Like, why don't you explain kind of, because he's the one designing it. I know you have just a sketch, but what's the design you wanted for it?
Well, it's a card game, and it's very general terms. It's currently planning on being a semi-cooperative game where the players will work together to a degree, but are encouraged to undermine each other at every opportunity. There's really only going to be one winner of the game, which to a degree mimics what happens in.
If they went down the wrong path, yes.
I can't really go into too much detail because a lot of it is spoilers for the next book.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of factions basically in the series that will have to work together to take down this other faction. That's basically the gist of it.
So it's like what card kind of, what's the name for those types of cards?
In order to distinguish it, it's a non-collectible card game, so
Yeah.
it's not like Magic the Gathering where you have to buy packs or anything. Everything you need is going to be in one box.
Yes.
That's really it.
Yeah. We have a couple supplementary artists. Priscilla, we'll probably be using some of your art for it. We took on another artist recently, a young Swedish artist who's going to be doing the supplementary art for the card game. And we are hoping next year to do a small visual novel for it as well. In the Kickstarter, once we reached our goal, we basically started promising people more and more elaborate things, the more money that we could raise. I think at the $7,000 mark was the card game, yeah. So we didn't quite reach the visual novel mark, so we might have to do either a separate Kickstarter or a separate means of funding because it is more expensive. Rem actually has, you have quite a background in video games.
Yeah.
She worked for Disney, technically.
Technically, yeah. Acclaim, you know, Mortal Kombat stuff. I was doing a side-scrolling beat-em-up game for them, which was canned by Disney. Because the company got kind of flip-flopped around everywhere, and that was a lot of fun to work on. I was basically the art director for that, and also a British company, a very small starting-out company. I was working on a role player for them, which never came to be as well. But it was a lot of experience, you know, working with video games and stuff. So I'm actually really too excited about doing a visual novel, but
She whipped up some screenshots for us when we were doing the Kickstarter in
so excited to
one day.
yeah.
We have basically the
It's
character.
different
Oh yeah.
than comics.
She gave me like it was color too. Like it was one of the characters, and there was this 3 expressions, and they had like dialogue below it. And he's like, oh, you know, I don't know, I'm worried about it. And, like his eyes get really big and stuff. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the visual novel. So it's a format for a video game. We don't have much over here. There've been a couple translated. 999 is one. There's an OT one.
No, it's more of a
puzzle, but with visual novel.
Yeah, still letting it with visual novel elements.
Yeah, like the Persona games have visual novel elements, although that's really an RPG as well. Hakuoki, the first Otome game in English, that is a visual
So
novel.
I always thought visual novels were like role players without the gameplay.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
It is, the characters, it's like the 2D anime style, and you interact with them, you choose options to answer questions, that sort of thing. You have a number of multiple endings depending on the choices that you make, and it's sort of a story that goes in a bunch of different directions. It doesn't sound exciting until you become obsessed with them, like some of us have. They are incredibly addictive, and it's a much simpler format to program for the first type of game that we want to do. And also, it fits really well for Tokyo Demons, which has a very big cast and different ways that you can go. So both the card game and the visual novel would take place during a period of book 2 where there's sort of, everybody's in close quarters, tensions are running high, and they're basically going off on a series of sort of battles and coming back. And you can have, it's a really good time to have sort of alternative endings. The visual novel will have different romantic couplings from the book. That sort of thing. Yes?
Do visual novels have audio dialogue? Or is
Yes,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
fully voiced as well, because we have music, we have art, music, voices. So
will you be able to use that from the audiobook or?
Not what we already have, it'll be separate.
it'll be new, because the storyline will be new.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And, so we're
Pizza for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they actually asked,
90,000 hours in front of the computer for me.
they actually asked us when they said they were putting up the Kickstarter, they basically said, what would you guys be willing to do? And they started doing one thing, so it was like, anything?
Okay. We have a great story about
With
that. One of the Kickstarter things, one of the highest tiers you could buy was an original audio drama. They're like, if you pay enough money, we'll write you whatever you want, and they'll have to act it out. So, an old friend of ours who's swimming in Alberta money, who loves to give Jay a hard time, bought an audio drama that is going to be the gayest Touya story of all time. So, we're going to be doing that this summer. So, we try to have a certain degree of interactivity with the audience. Partially, that was what we were doing with the Kickstarter. Some of the other Kickstarter prizes that people won, we're going to be doing side stories. People are voting on what character is going to be in the side story. We're doing a complete AU based on reader submissions. People are going to submit like a one-line, I want...
Magical Girl Sachi.
It might be Magical Girl Sachi. Yeah, the main boy, I guess you would say the main boy, like the love interest, Sachi, who's sort of the Genki type. He would make a really good magical girl, and actually somebody wrote some fanfic where he is a magical girl. She did art for it and a theme song. Which is actually
We
really
do
good.
fan fiction now, and that to me is the real sign of success. So
Yeah, we do. So people are going to submit ideas, and then we're going to put them up for a vote, and then we'll write whatever, not quite 18 plus, but anything else is fair game. Somebody wanted them all as dragon people. We'll see. Whoever gets
it's
voted
cool,
in.
you know.
Whatever you want.
Will the Touya story be available to everybody?
Do you want this really gay story? Alright, okay.
I'm saying probably.
Probably. She mostly did it 'cause she's like, I want to support you guys. And we're like, you get something out of it. Would you like something gay? She's like, oh, that's a great idea.
I think the phrase bonus material.
Yeah, it might be a bonus for the hard copy. So this has 2 short stories in the back about some of the characters' backstories. This one has outtakes, but also we did another exclusive short story that only exists in audio form that's only in the hard copy here. So they told us we had 5 minutes. So
I think the outtakes are the best though. You guys listen to like a raw cut of the outtakes, and I would be listening to it on my way to work, trying to have like a normal, serious voice on, and it's like guaranteed. As soon as I hit like government buildings and suits, I would just be like, just like laughing uncontrollably.
as Rebecca said, she records like 1,000 times more than what we use, so it gets pretty wild in there, particularly if we don't really feel like working that day. Some of the outtakes I think are pretty amusing. Sorry, 2 quick questions? Yes.
Oh, yes, when you were doing the Manic Scream,
Yeah.
did the police help?
Weirdly, I think the people underneath them were like, some people scream up there a lot. Like, what's the big deal?
Sometimes they just kidnap a boy.
Yeah, we had a fake of kidnapped in Dallas. He had like a towel or something. He was screaming, help me, help me!
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
The more we get away with, the more I'm convinced that restaurant must be incredibly sketchy if they don't want to call it.
Like, don't worry about it, it's fine. It's just the people screaming for hours. It's
Folks
totally
upstairs
fine.
have a BDSM dungeon or something.
You should have a
light that says recording in process.
Yeah. Well, honestly, there are a lot of men at work at that restaurant. If they want to come up and be thugs, we really could use them. Okay, so So they're telling me we need to go to the next panel. So come on up, get some of Paul's delicious baked goods. And thank you for coming.